And it's now time to continue our talks here on the main stage with a subject dear to me, social entrepreneurship and involving universities in effective business development. We would like to thank the American Embassy for their cooperation with this, and please welcome on stage Sam Vaghar, Executive Director and co-founder of the Millennium Campus Network, which is a US-based national initiative. Welcome, Sam.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you. How are you? Welcome. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
So, my name is Sam Vaghar. I'm here from a little city called Boston, Massachusetts. Have any of you been to Massachusetts? All right. That's home for me. So I'm a long way from home, and it's a fantastic honor to be with you at the Startup Next conference as a part of upVenture Week. And for me, really thank you to Chris and all the organizers and Mario and the whole team for making this happen. And I want to thank you for your time, for giving me the opportunity to share a few of the life lessons I've had in the last decade. So for me, I actually want to start with an activity. This is something that Ryan Alice taught me. Ryan is the co-founder of the company Eye Contact, and he shared this exercise. So I want you to close your eyes. Close your eyes. And imagine that you are 85 years old. You are 85 years old and you're sitting on a rocking chair by the water. You're in a beautiful space by the beach. You see the waves roll in. And in the chair next to you is a 5-year-old. Now the 5-year-old reaches over to you. Maybe it's a grandchild, maybe it's a friend's grandchild, maybe it's another family or friend. And they say to you this 5-year-old says one simple question. Hey, you're 85 years old, which is pretty old compared to me at 5. What did you accomplish in your life? What did you accomplish in your life? That's a pretty bold question for a 5-year-old to ask. But the 5-year-old wants to know. So you look back at this 5-year-old who's sitting in your lap now, and you say, well, in my life, I blank. I want you to open your eyes. I want you to find one person. And I want you to share just for 30 seconds, 45 seconds each. What would you share with that 5-year-old if the 5-year-old was sitting next to you right now? Go ahead, please share. I would love to hear from a couple of you. What would you share with that 5-year-old? What would you share? Yes.
Change the world.
Change the world. And how would you change the world?
I want to make a new perception of entertainment where people don't have to sit in their chairs, but have entertainment through motion and movement.
Entertainment through motion and movement instead of sitting in chairs. Excellent, thank you. Anybody else? What would you say to that 5-year-old? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say that I'm proud of myself that the people that I've influenced in a positive way are way more than the ones that I've neglected in my life or I've never paid attention to. So I have really a wide circle of people that when they meet me, being 85 years old, they say, "Oh, man, you're the one that helped me or changed my life 5 years ago. I know you. You're a great guy." And, yeah.
So a lot of it is about the effect you have on others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Yes.
Take your own decision. Don't let other people decide for you.
Take your own decisions. Don't let other people decide for you. Excellent. So, for me, I'm here to talk about social entrepreneurship, using business techniques to solve societal problems. And underpinning all of that, the reason why I'm here really is to share purpose. I can only share my experience. I'm never prescriptive. I'm not Bulgarian, just in case you didn't know. So I'm American, and I can only share from what I personally have seen and experienced. I'll never try to come in and say, hey, in 40 minutes or less, I'll solve challenges in Bulgaria. That's absurd. But I know that there are a lot of talented innovators in this room who are thinking about those challenges. And there's a lot of pressure and expectation, I think, on young entrepreneurs to be successful. And success is defined as making as much money as possible and then maybe giving back later in life. But I want to redefine success with you this morning, to think about what it could look like to solve some of the biggest challenges our planet faces. And I'll really just do that by sharing my story with you. So when I was in high school, when I was very young, I was incredibly shy. I had 2 friends in high school, just 2. And do you have like a prom in Bulgaria? Okay, so we had prom in so we had prom, Chris, in America. But here's the thing, I was too shy to ask anyone out. So I had what they call a blind date. My friends had to call someone for me. I was too afraid. And that was my only date all 4 years of high school. One date. I applied to 17 colleges and universities. In the United States, we have over 4,400 colleges and universities, mostly nonprofit, a few for-profit. I applied to 17 of them, and most of those 17 colleges and universities rejected me. So I was a total loser in high school. I had very few friends. My friends were great. I had one date, and I got rejected from most schools. So at this point, you're probably wondering, well, why did the embassy in the United States of America decide to send this guy? They could have sent somebody far more successful. And that was really, honestly, up until 18 years old, my experience. But at 18, my life changed. I enrolled at Brandeis University. And in high school, growing up, I was so shy. Every person that I wanted to talk to, I couldn't. I just could not get out of my comfort zone. Not even to share or pitch an idea, literally just to go and say hi to somebody. And so for me, at 18, my life changed because when I started at university, I did the first entrepreneurial thing that came to mind. I reached out. I got out of my comfort zone. We're all always boxing ourselves in and saying, this is what we have to subscribe to. What if the person doesn't like me? What if they say no? But this one time I said, you know what? I want to say yes. I want to try something different. And that's what I did. So I reached out and I said, hey, I'm Sam. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm Christian.
Pleasure to meet you. I'm Sam. How are you?
It's good to see you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Awesome.
Honestly, this kind of interaction is exactly what happened over and over and over again. And so for me, in high school, I was very shy. I would never do that. At Brandeis University, I did it over and over again. In high school, I ran for student body president, student government every year. Lost every single year. At university, I won every single year. I was the exact same person. The only thing that had changed is that I was willing to actually reach out and say hi. And so at the beginning of university, all I would do was party and have a good time. That was my life. And then at a certain point, I read 2 books that changed my life. And these are 2 books I recommend to most people. One book was Mountains Beyond Mountains. It's about the work of Dr. Paul Farmer and Partners in Health. And this book talks about Paul's work. When he was 23 years old, he left Harvard University. He went down to Haiti, working as a doctor, as a practitioner, and ultimately as a social entrepreneur. He actually stole medical supplies from Harvard and brought them down to Haiti. Well, Paul and Partners in Health have now been working more than 25 years in 9 countries on global health programs. They're on the cutting edge, most recently addressing the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. Paul's co-founder, Jim Kim, is now the president of the World Bank. So this small, fledgling social entrepreneur turned into something much, much bigger that has had a ripple effect on communities all over the globe and shaped public policy as well. So I read that book. The second book I read was The End of Poverty by the economist Jeffrey Sachs. Now, some of Jeff's work, I would say, is controversial, especially with the transition in Russia. But the work that he was doing on extreme poverty with the Secretary General of the United Nations spoke to me. It resonated. I learned for the first time that 1.2 billion people live on less than $1.25 US a day, particularly in areas of sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and to a lesser extent, Latin America. And I understood fundamentally that we all had a role to play in addressing that challenge. So all of a sudden, life wasn't just about partying, as great as that was, but I had purpose. I knew that if I was 85 years old and a 5-year-old came up, I understood what my calling was, why I'm here. And I'm here to mobilize people to address the most pressing challenges of our time. Because you can put your talent in a lot of different places. But there are some challenges that are worth fighting for, that we should unify around. And so when I was 19 years old, I took out my phone and I put in a cold call to this economist, Jeffrey Sachs. And I went down to Columbia University 2 days later and I met with his team. I said, look, I'm 19 years old. I know I have very few of the answers, but I know our generation can do more when it comes to extreme poverty, when it comes to international development, and I want to figure out what that role is. We came back to Brandeis University. We started mobilizing students. 6 months later, we had our first Millennium campus conference at MIT. 1,000 student leaders showed up from around the world. Paul Farmer, Jeff Sachs. Have any of you heard of a singer called John Legend? John Legend, the head of USAID. All these global leaders participated. And Jeff, John, Paul, and others joined our board of advisors and helped us start this small nonprofit in our dorm rooms. It literally started in our university dorm rooms, and it's grown over the last 8 years. It's grown globally. And so what we do at the Millennium Campus Network, the MCN, is talent development for the international development sector on university campuses. So we identify students who want to have meaningful global impact. We train them to be more humble, more empathetic, and results-driven. And then we provide career support to help them take their next professional step in the sector beyond graduation. Because there's nothing that frustrates me more than seeing young people who have the talent and drive and ambition and then can't get employed. To me, it's a global challenge. I was just in Macedonia, and where the youth unemployment rate is over 50%. And it's not because there's a dearth of talent. The talent exists. The challenge is building out a talent pipeline so that people can get employed, and especially for social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, can find investment, philanthropic capital to continue the work. So for us, really, that's what we've done, starting in the United States and now increasingly globally. And so it's been an 8-year journey, but a lot of this journey actually didn't come from what I learned in books, as great as that is. It came from actual life experience. And so when I was 18 years old, still a first year at university, I was walking along in Washington, D.C., and I came across a man who is homeless. Now, normally, in those situations, what do? You look past the person, right? It's very hard to do this, actually make eye contact and have a conversation. Usually, we just kind of look a little bit past. Sometimes what I do when I'm really shy, or I really don't want to even acknowledge the person's existence, I pick up my phone, I pretend I'm on a call with someone, just so I can ignore the person who's homeless. But this one time at 18 years old, I decided to do something a little bit different. So the man was sitting. He was just sitting on the ground. And so for me, I figured, what can I do in this moment that's different? I sat down. So we sat on the sidewalk together and shared lunch for 45 minutes. And about 20 minutes into the conversation, I said to him, if you don't mind me asking, sir, I have one question. Just one small question. How do you survive? I'm from Boston. I always had the resources I needed to survive. I never dealt with this kind of challenge. So I know I have this privilege, and I'm just trying to understand. And he looked back at me, and he said, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone. I'm not afraid to look up at those above me and ask for help. Never be afraid to talk to anyone. Never be afraid to talk to anyone. It was the single best piece of advice I ever received. And it didn't come from a professor. It didn't come from a world leader. It came from a man who's homeless. And that, honestly, is what social entrepreneurship is all about. It's actually engaging with people. It's not about issues, as important as issues are to address. It's about actually engaging with people. Like Maya from Cornerstone, who I just met this morning, not to call you out, but yeah, there's an incredible ecosystem of social entrepreneurship everywhere in the world. And so for me, I've spent the last decade, I started at 19, I'm 29 now, traveling the world, meeting young social entrepreneurs, and building out a talent pipeline and a curriculum to support them. But it was really instilled in me that if I'm serious about this work, I need to get out of my comfort zone again and again and again, as much as possible. So I took that advice that this man shared with me. And in 2010, I was at a conference. I was at a conference in Miami. And I come across an actor. This actor's name is Kal Penn. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen the movie The Namesake. No? How about a movie called Harold and Kumar? Okay. So Kumar from Harold and Kumar, that's Kal Penn. So Kal Penn is at this conference, and everybody is too shy to go say hi to Kal. Honestly, everyone's like, I can't go say hi to Kal, he's a big deal. So if we imagine for a moment that you are Kal Penn, okay? So imagine this is Kal, and everyone is too afraid to go say hello. Well, what did that man teach me? What did he teach me?
Never be afraid to ask for help.
Exactly. And so in this moment, I thought, wow, I've got to try. So if you stand up for a moment, Kal. So Kal Penn is here, and everyone is too afraid to go say hi. And Kal actually was not as friendly. Like, he was nice, but he kind of had some entourage around him, some bodyguards, and if you want to stand up for a second. So he's got like some security around him. He's kind of a big deal. And yeah, so Kal's here just kind of waiting actually to go on stage and speak. And I thought, you know what? I've come all the way to Miami. Let me give this a shot. Let me try and see what happens. So I go up and I said, hi.
No, you can't do it.
So that is awesome. Thank you. What was your name?
It's Lou.
Lou. Thank you, Lou. That was awesome. So I go up to Kal, and the security lets me do it, actually. Thank you. Pleasure to meet you. How are you?
I'm great.
Excellent. And
You're going to be a great actor, you know.
oh, thank you. Well, I'm not going into acting, but if I was, then I'm really honored, because coming from you, that means a lot with great films like Harold and Kumar.
Yeah,
So
I'm trying,
yeah. So I said to you, Kal, do you remember what I said next?
No, not exactly.
Okay, so I'll fill you in on the details. So what I said was, I'm Sam Vaghar from Boston, Massachusetts, and I've created an NGO called Millennium Campus Network, MCN. And we are building out a student movement, a talent pipeline to address poverty in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, you may not... Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You have something
I'm
to say?
listening.
Okay, so at the time...
I'm shaking. Yeah.
Well, no, you're a big shot Hollywood actor. You know, I'm just young social entrepreneur. Okay. So, in this moment, what I said to you was, well, I know that you had actually left Hollywood for a brief period of time when we're meeting. And at this time, Kal had actually left to work for President Obama in the White House on youth engagement issues. And so in this moment, I reached out and I said, hey, I would love to connect further at the White House. And you said,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you so much. Give Kal a round of applause. So we connected. And here's some quick tips that I learned as a social entrepreneur. Number one, you gave me your business card. And one thing that I learned right away is to follow up. If you get a card from somebody, I'm happy to give you all mine. And actually, I'll give you both mine right now. If you meet somebody and you want to stay connected, honestly, it's so key to follow up within 24 hours. Because in this moment, we just created magic. And actually, that was one of the funniest things that's happened anytime I've ever done this presentation. That was amazing. And so for me, anytime you meet somebody that you want to stay connected with, to follow up within 24 hours is absolutely key. The second thing I learned was something from the Cordis Foundation, one of our partners. And they said this to me. They said, Sam, anytime you go and you meet with somebody, if you're an entrepreneur, oftentimes it's about fundraising, investors, sales, revenue. For nonprofits, maybe it's some of that, and it's also philanthropic capital. You're going to philanthropists, you're going to government and others, you name it. The thing is, the big thing that I learned was, oftentimes I used to go in and I'd be like, hey, please, if you could just help me out, that'd be great. I'd be so honored if you would help. Please, we really need your support. Do you think this works? So the one question that I will share with all of you that the Cordis Foundation taught me to always ask in any meeting you're in, is this one question. It changes the dynamic every single time. The question is, how can I help you? Those 5 magic words. How can I help you? Because especially as young entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs, we actually have a lot of talent to offer and ideas to offer. And especially as young people created so many of the technologies that we use today. The reason why we can stay connected after this event through a tool like Facebook is because, you know what, on February 9th, 2004, there was an article in the Harvard Crimson. You can go look it up. And at the time, the head of residential IT at Harvard, person on staff there, said, oh, you know something, this idea sounds interesting, but we're actually going to do it internally at Harvard ourselves. So I don't know why this student has this idea, because we're going to do our own thing. Do you know what idea I'm talking about? What? Facebook, exactly. Mark Zuckerberg had an idea. Harvard University said, we're going to do it. And Mark, if you go look at the article in the Harvard Crimson, he said, you know what? I can do it better than Harvard University can, and I can do it in a week. And he did. How many of you are on Facebook today? That's the power of youth in large part, okay? And so when people look at us and they say, well, you're young, you don't have anything, you can't contribute. No, I turn that on its head. And you always ask that question, how can I help you? Because it equalizes the relationship. All of a sudden, you're seen as adding value. And oftentimes, the person may say, hey, whoa, you were coming in asking me for something, I thought. So it actually changes the dynamic. And even if maybe they say, well, you know what? I don't actually need anything from you. But they're actually flattered that you actually thought to ask the question. So with Kal, with you, for 9 months in a row, I kept asking, how can I help you? What is the White House working on? Do you need youth engagement? And every single time you said, okay. No. Every single time you said no. So it was no. Every single time. I kept reaching out month after month, and Kal kept saying no. But on the 10th month, you said yes. And so on the 10th month, I reached out to Kal Penn, and Kal said to me, well, you know what? Yes, there is something that you can help with. We're launching an initiative at the White House called White House Youth Roundtables. We want to know what young Americans care about. So, what happened? Well, we reached out to peers all over America on college campuses, and we said, look, we have this network at MCN of young people passionate about global change. We want you to convene in rooms like this, and even smaller rooms, and just have an honest conversation about the issues in the world and why it's important that programs like the Peace Corps and USAID and others exist, that America engages meaningfully and positively in the world, and through volunteers, like all the students we engage. We did this, and a month later, Kal calls me back, and he says, well, Sam, would you like to come to the White House for a debrief meeting to talk about all you experienced? I said, yeah, I would be quite honored. So 2 weeks later, we're at the White House. And have any of you been to the White House? 1, 2. Have you been? You want to go to the White House. Okay, that's fair. Have any of you, did you go in the West Wing? Yeah, so you know the West Wing, and have any of you seen the TV show The West Wing? A couple of you. So the West Wing is actually, maybe you feel the same, it was really small. And that was what I was struck by. I always thought, oh, it's the White House, it's where the president is, it's a big thing. No, it was actually really small. And so we walk in, and there's just 10 of us, 10 national youth leaders from across the United States talking about the issues that matter to us as millennials. And we walk in, and in walks the president's press secretary walks by, and he says, hey, how's it going? And we're like, oh, it's okay, thanks. We honestly had no clue what to say. President Obama's energy secretary walks by. All these different global leaders are walking by, and we're just kind of shocked. And we see Kal, and Kal is in this small room and invites us into this room. And the room is called the Roosevelt Room. And the Roosevelt Room it's one small room in the West Wing, just one table. That's it. And so we walk in, and Kal's there, and Valerie Jarrett, President Obama's senior advisor, is there. And we sit down, and we start talking about the issues that matter to us. What are the issues that really move us as people? And so we're having these conversations for about 20, 30 minutes. And about 30 minutes into the conversation, Kal says, well, you know what? I have to go, but I'll be back in 5 minutes. So we're thinking, well, where's Kal going? And about 5 minutes later, the wall. So you see like that wall right there? You see it, it's a wall, right? Right? Imagine all of a sudden that wall swings open. Imagine that there's a secret door in that wall. So the wall opens up, and bounding in comes, who do you think?
President Obama.
Bo Obama, the little dog, comes bounding in. Oh. And we're like, what is going on here? So Bo Obama comes bounding in, and then right behind Bo, in walks Barack Obama. And he says, hi, I'm Barack Obama. And we're like, yeah, we know who you are. And so in this moment, I thought to myself, what do you do? How do you make the most of the opportunity? So imagine that you're the president of the United States. Yeah. So imagine you're the president, and we have this one moment. And Mario, if you want to show the picture real quick. So we have this one moment, and I thought about what the man who was homeless taught me. The man who was homeless said to me, never be afraid to talk to anyone. And that also applies to the president. And so the other thing that I learned as a social entrepreneur is to always be prepared. Any meeting you walk in with intentionality. Know what you want to get out of that meeting. Have an agenda, have a plan. So I did. I had handwritten notes for the president and the first lady. So the president walks in, And the president comes over to shake each of our hands. And I said, "Hi, I'm Sam Vaghar from Boston. How are you?"
Nice to meet you, Sam. I'm the President Obama.
So I said, "Well, thank you."
Welcome to the White House.
Oh, thank you. You're very good at being president. And so in this moment, I thought, wow, I have to make the most of the opportunity. So I had these handwritten notes for the president and the first lady. I took them out of my pocket and I put them in your left hand. And you look down and you say,
Wow, very impressive. Thank you very much.
yeah.
Make sure I look at them.
Wow. Actually, and give the president a round of applause. And truthfully, that's not exactly what happened. The president was very shocked. The president said, "What is this? Like, what? Okay." Secret Service, like Lou, probably hated me, probably wanted to punch me out, but I didn't care. Because in this moment, never be afraid to talk to anyone. Grab the moment, make the most of it. And that's exactly what I did. And so if you want to shift to the next photo, Mario. So we have this moment. And then we come and we sit down with the president in the Roosevelt Room. So there's me on the left, the president on the right. You can see, there's you, Cal, right behind the president, and Valerie Jarrett. So there's the whole team. And so we all sit down together. And we're connecting about the different issues of our day. So we're talking about climate change. We're talking about business regulation. We're talking about economic growth. We're talking about things then in particular to young people like student loans and other issues. We're talking about sexism and homophobia and a lot of issues, race relations, a lot of issues that we face in the United States. And the president says this. President Obama looks at us around the table and he says, "You know, it's so important that you as young people, in your teens, in your 20s, in your 30s, make a difference. In your 40s, not to wait until you're in your 80s or 90s to be successful and then give back, but to start right now at a young age." And he said, "You know, one day you might be sitting on this side of the table," which is a really powerful statement from your president to say that. So thank you for sharing that. And so in this moment, I thought, wow, we're here with the President of the United States of America. I need to make the most of the opportunity. So the president is going around sharing all these different points and really just affirming the power of young people. And as he's wrapping up, he talks for about 10, 15 minutes. And as he's wrapping up, I know that in this moment, he's getting ready to go. He starts doing the whole thank you, and you know he's on his way out. But I needed his attention in this moment. Just for a moment, I needed his attention. So what could I do? What do you think I did? Yeah. I raised my hand. And just as you're all looking at my hand right now, it's exactly what happened at that table. The president is saying, thank you, but everyone's looking at my hand. And at this point, it would actually be really rude. Honestly, if you didn't call on me, that would be really rude. So you did. So the president said, oh yeah, Sam, go ahead. I said, well, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I said, your leadership is a bold statement. Now, if you know presidential politics, electoral politics in America, you know that when President Obama was elected in 2008, he was elected in large part thanks to young people. Young people volunteered and voted in record numbers. And that's why he's sitting there today. But I also said his leadership was a bold statement because if you had told me at 10 years old or at 5 years old that a man named Barack Hussein Obama would be president of the United States of America, I would not have believed you, honestly. And so regardless of your politics, in the U.S., our two biggest parties are Republicans and Democrats, but regardless of your politics, just the idea that President Obama could become president and be sitting there was a powerful statement to all of us. And then I said, oh, and I gave you those 2 notes. And that's an invitation to get involved with our work. And everyone laughed at me because the whole room cracks up. They're all laughing because I'm pitching the President of the United States in front of everyone. But I didn't care. I honestly did not care. Because in this moment, I thought about what that man who was homeless taught me. Never be afraid to talk to anyone. Such a simple but powerful, profound message. And so for me, in this moment, I reached out, and because I did, every other hand shot up. Everyone else, all of a sudden, it's funny, with entrepreneurship, somebody always has to go first. And that's the hardest part. And somebody always has to invest first, and that's also the hardest part. But once somebody gets behind you, all of a sudden everyone else says, oh, that's credible. Yeah, that looks good. And you're like, well, it was the same thing that we had a week ago. And a week ago you said no, and now you're saying yes. But that's entrepreneurship. You're going to hear a lot of no's before you get to one yes. And many of you, as entrepreneurs, you know this already. And for those of you starting out, you'll experience that soon, for sure. But that's what happened. And you know what? Because I reached out, because I raised my hand in this moment, I raised my hand, I make my 1 point. And as a result of that, the State Department called me up. And they said, Sam, would you like to go share your work in Bosnia and your story and best practices? So we did that in 2011. State Department called in 2013, said, would you like to go to Morocco and do the same? We did. And now in 2015, because I raised my hand, because of what that man taught me, I'm standing in front of you, connecting with you here in Bulgaria. All of this comes back to what one man who is homeless taught me a decade ago. And that, at its core, is what social entrepreneurship is all about. And so, my challenge to all of you, honestly, is to really think about the critical challenges that we face. The challenges here in Bulgaria, the challenges in the Balkans, the challenges in the world, but also the opportunities. And the social issues that underpin everything that we can be a part of solving together. And I always close with this letter, which is something that really changed my whole perspective. And I always leave people with this because it's one of the most powerful Facebook messages I ever received. And if I may, if I have...
Of course, please.
I want to share this because what Layla taught me, I hope will really, for all of you, for any of you in the room who are just thinking, I want to make a ton of money. I want you to think about, in any meeting you walk into, who isn't in the room? Who are the most marginalized voices? Who's missing from this conversation? How do we create more inclusive workforce, more inclusive leadership in society? Layla shared this with me. She said, and this was in Morocco, in Agadir in 2013. She said, Dear Mr. Vaghar, thank you for coming yesterday to Agadir. Your speech was pretty inspiring. I must confess that when I decided to go to the training, I was not really expecting to learn something, but I was wrong. I have learned that we shouldn't feel embarrassed to ask for help, and we shouldn't deny who we really are because we can never improve if we keep deluding ourselves. It was really courageous from your part to share with us your story, and I would like to share mine with you as well. I will try to make it short. During most of my life, I was struggling to be normal, to act normal, and to try to prove that I am like anyone else, even though I'm in a wheelchair. However, I live in a society that is not fully aware of what it means to be handicapped, and it applies to everyday life. For example, yesterday I was going to leave EMA, our school, because the elevator was not working, and I did not want my father to carry me to the 3rd floor. But he insisted, and I ended by accepting. What is really great about this country is that people are helpful when you ask them. But the infrastructure of most buildings does not make it access easy for people in wheelchairs. Sometimes I think that to the government, I don't even exist. And the consequences are great to my family and friends. And when I say it, I mean all people in wheelchairs certainly live the same frustrations. Now I go to the university and my class is in the 2nd floor. There's no elevator. And each time my father helps me to get there with the help of someone else, mostly classmates. To be honest with you, I am sick of having to cause trouble to people like that. I don't want to have to think if the place I'm going to is accessible or not. And that's why I'd like to contribute to the creation of a community that acknowledges the existence of different persons and to make life easier for them rather than harder. There is an association, but it's located in Rabat, and their activities do not reach us. Two people and I tried to form a kind of sub-association of AMM, the association, but we have not found anyone willing to help us. And I would like to ask, according to your experience, how is it possible to create an awareness in the heart of people? How is it possible to create an awareness in the heart of people? And how can we instill ambition, or rather willingness, in our community to help improve the lives of people who are imprisoned in their little corners because the outdoor world does not have the requirements to welcome them? Again, thank you for your help. Sincerely, Layla. It's probably the most powerful email I've ever received. And I think it's more powerful than anything I could share myself, honestly. I would just leave you with that thought. The next time you see somebody who's homeless on a street corner, maybe try something different. Maybe try having that conversation and seeing if you connect. And in that moment, maybe something special will happen too. And as you focus on entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, be persistent, be bold. And Abraham Lincoln, coming from America, I have to close with an American president. Abraham Lincoln said, "Be sure you put your feet in the right place, then stand firm." I wish you the best of luck, and I'm going to be here to support you as one young American, humbly here just to connect and learn from all of you. Thank you so much.
Woo! Amazing. All right.
Sam, that was absolutely incredible. And I think that there are a lot of people that would like to ask some questions. And I think that it's just so rarely that we get something so inspirational. So if you mind, like if maybe we get some Q&A from the audience really quickly.
We're just going to take you up on exactly what you offer.
Okay.
Don't be afraid
Well,
to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So, guys, don't be afraid to ask Sam whatever you want to ask. I'm going to be going around with the mic right there so all of us can hear your thoughts. And we're going to have about a 10-minute Q&A session with Sam. So who wants to go first? The very elusive first. Who's that going to be?
Always the hardest.
We have the first mover right here. Do we have a microphone, or should we just lean to people?
Depends on how close you want to get.
Okay.
All right, there we go. I hope it's on. Yeah?
Hey, Sam.
Great.
It's Tani from Startup Team. Thanks for the... I have only one question for you, man.
Okay.
How can I help you?
Okay. That's actually... Thank you. How can you help? So for us, part of why I travel the world is to identify young social entrepreneurs who can plug into our global ecosystem. So each year, I mentioned the summit we did at MIT. Our next summit will be in Washington, D.C. in September 2016. And so we're looking for the top young leaders around the world from university campuses to join. So if there are university students who are aspiring social entrepreneurs, we would love for them to apply to that program. And then it turns into a year-long fellowship. And that for me would be, I think, a big win. That's, I think, the most helpful thing. And then the U.S. Embassy is incredible here, and having had the chance to connect over the last day, I would certainly say to anyone who has ideas that could add value and mutual value to what the embassy is doing, to connect, because I think that's really important that they're present here as well. Thank you.
We have a question in the middle.
Yep.
And if you could just share your name and your affiliation or where you're from, that'd be great.
There you go.
Thanks.
My name is Dimo Michev, and I would like to ask you to share some samples of your actual activity. What you exactly doing around the world?
Yeah. So like the actual tangible concrete work. So I can tell you this year we're impacting 12,339 community members all over the world, from clean water programs in Nicaragua to mobile health programs in Zambia. So for instance, in Zambia, it's incredible. Students out of Boston University had this idea to create a mobile app. And what the app does is identifies hotspots for where to place antennas for mHealth in Zambia. So those are the kinds of projects that we provide seed funding to, and those students go through our fellowship. The other piece is young social entrepreneurs. So a young woman who I often talk about, her name is Nisha McCray. And Nisha is a 2014 graduate of MIT. Nisha had all the opportunities in the world because she's honestly one of the most brilliant people I have met. Nisha had job offers from Facebook, from Google, and she turned them down to become a social entrepreneur. I don't advise that, honestly. I would probably take a job from Facebook or Google. But the reason why she did it was because she went through our conference, gained inspiration, gained a mentor, went through our fellowship program, built out her business plan, her executive board, and then leveraged $7,000 in seed funding and continued full-time. And what she's doing in Cape Town, South Africa, full-time right now is teaching design thinking to 12 to 16-year-olds. And the way she does it is truly innovative. She's created a solar power USB charger for mobile devices. It takes 1 hour to build. So this solar power charger takes 1 hour to build. She brings it to the teens build it, and then they bring their own ideas to a pitch competition. And the goal, actually, of her work, Bajika, is to take some of those ideas out into the marketplace. Because in South Africa, if any of you have been, huge issue is youth unemployment. And so to tap into young people's entrepreneurial abilities is key. So those are the kinds of projects. And I'd say the other thing is less about the technical skills and more about the values. So we talk about humility and empathy. And the reason we talk about those is if you all are familiar with the space of international development, then you would know that over the last 50, 60 years, a lot of projects have failed and failed miserably. And the reason why those projects have failed is because people go in with a lot of preconceived notions of what a society looks like, who people are. They judge. Again, they see somebody who's homeless or they look at somebody, they do social math, they decide how they look, and based on appearance, they say this is how things are going to work. It's entirely the wrong way of doing things. So we do this simple exercise that I can do with you in 30 seconds. We say person A is helping person B, and this is part of our year-long curriculum. Person A is helping person B. I'm not going to tell you anything else about either person. All I'm going to tell you is person A is helping person B. Okay, A is helping B. What's person A's name? Give me a name. Jim. Okay, so Jim is helping person B. Give me a name. What is it? George. Jim is helping George. Okay. Give me characteristics of Jim. Jim is the one helping George. Any kind of adjectives you think of. This is the person helping. Passionate. What else? What? Productive. Proactive. What else? Experienced. Active. Brave. Okay, all positive attributes. Give me attributes of George, the person who's being helped. Shy. What was that? Can't hear you. What? Humiliated. Okay. Anything else? Which? I can't hear you. Teachable. Okay. So what we do, and we've done this exercise so many times. Number one, the one thing that I'll point out to you is oftentimes the person who's doing the helping is a male name. Oftentimes. And we do this all over the world. And usually it's, oftentimes it's a man helping a woman. And it gives you kind of a sense of the conditional sexism that we have in so many societies around the world that we don't even realize we're a part of. So that's one thing. In this case, it was a man helping a man. But that's something that we've picked up on over the years. But the second piece is, when you look at the characteristics of Jim, they're all positive. When you look at the characteristics of George, usually, you're a social entrepreneur, so you say something like teachable, which is better. But usually it's positive helping negative. Positive helping negative. We don't look at assets of community. We don't look at the values of a community, the culture, all that they bring to the table. Instead, we say, oh, we're coming in to help. We're the saviors. We're going to change everything. It's absolutely fundamentally flawed. And that's the way so much of international development has been done over the last 50, 60 years. So part of what we do is develop technical skills, how to create a budget, how to write a business plan, how to manage a team more effectively, giving skills that young people are going to need to be effective in the workplace, whether they're social entrepreneurs or social intrapreneurs working within companies. But the other piece is about the values. It's about humility and empathy and just learning how to connect with people and build out real partnerships and friendships, because I think that's if you look at any successful project or partnership in social entrepreneurship, it's predicated on those values. So that's really what we teach throughout the course of the academic year.
Okay, guys, we have time for one more question before we proceed. Anybody want to ask anything?
Does anyone have like a really hard question?
All right.
Oh, okay. What am I scared of? All right, I'll be on. What was your name? What is it? Temelko. Temelko. What am I scared of? Okay. You want me to be really, really honest? I'm going to be fine. I'm 29. I'm already traveling the world doing everything I want to do. I'm going to be just fine. A lot of young people, especially in the States, they always feel like they need to be doing more. A lot of my friends, even the most successful ones. And I feel that way too sometimes. But the truth is, I'm going to be just fine. What worries me, what I'm most scared of, is that there are a lot of people who are going to be left by the wayside that no one cares about. And the more places I've traveled, the more obvious that is. There are a lot of people, a lot of groups that are often marginalized in society. And I actually think, probably looking at this room, I don't want to judge because I don't know. But I imagine if most people are here, many of you are going to be very successful people. I hope. But what I'm scared of is that there are a lot of people who aren't in this room and in rooms like this around the world. And I don't know what it's going to take to create more inclusion in society, but that's what I'm scared of, is that we don't do it, and that when I'm 85 and we're sitting together in rocking chairs at 85 by the beach, we're having this conversation, and we're like, yeah, we did a lot, but there are so many issues that we missed and so many people that we didn't touch. When I know that if we actually all banded together, if we built global networks together, we could actually solve a lot of these challenges, and we could do that. So it's a fear, a genuine fear that I have, but also an opportunity, and I think that's a large part of the reason why I'm here today.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give it up for Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. That was incredible.